Hey, this is Allison. I'm so excited to bring to you the rest of the Impossible Goals podcast that we started last week. If you didn't get a chance to listen, go and check out episode number 8, Impossible Goals. And then we're going to continue it in today's episode, Impossible Goals Part 2, continuing with those amazing tips and resources. I hope you enjoy. Okay, the other tip we have, tip number, what is this? We're on tip number 4, is to ask yourself, how might I be wrong about that? So when I first set this impossible goal, 2 weeks in Europe with my kids, and I'm not talking, I wanted to, live in some like dumpy place. We didn't live extravagantly either, but I wanted to enjoy our trip, live, have a place with 6 comfortable beds, or not 6 beds, but able to sleep 6 people comfortably, fly comfortably. Not that we wanted to be in first class, but we flew
premium economy.
Yeah,
it was very comfortable.
Very comfortable. And I wanted them to experience the culture. I wanted them to go to the museums, to go on the tours,
to be able to pay tour guides,
eat the food, to do all of that. So it really seemed impossible to me. And I had a lot of emotion when I wrote down that goal. I really did. I felt fear. I was thinking, well, we're going to lose a lot of money.
Well, we did run the math on that.
Yeah,
and I'm not bashful to talk about it.
Well, I don't want to. I can't really talk about it still. But I thought, what if we're going to lose money, like just because it's going to be expensive, but also the loss of money of us both not working during those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of doubt, like it's not even possible for us to walk away from our work for 2 weeks. And I felt overwhelmed. Like, how would I even start planning something like that? Like, it's a lot of work planning for 6 people and making sure they're all taken care of and interested in what we're doing, and finding the activities and finding the tickets and getting from city to city. And it's a lot of planning. And I was not wrong about that, by the way. It was a lot of planning. And one of the other feelings that I had at the time was I was embarrassed. I was actually embarrassed for having this big dream. Like, what if this never happens? What if it's not possible and I die and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's the girl that, dreamed big dreams and she thought she was going to take her family to Europe, and how crazy was that of her to think that was even possible? But when I started asking myself, how might I be wrong about my thoughts about this trip, it really opened up the possibilities to me. And what that does, when you ask yourself, how might I be wrong about that, it creates curiosity. And when you're curious about something, that changes your mindset. So you start acting differently. You start thinking, okay, well, what if the trip was in a year? And what could we do now to start preparing? And what could we plan in advance so that we're not overwhelmed? What if John got a partner at work, which you did do that last year, 50-50, right? Mm-hmm. Partner at work, that could take over for those 2 weeks. And John would be able to step away for 2 weeks. And he's able to train his staff on how to survive without him for 2 weeks. I mean, there's a lot of planning that went into that. And for me, what if I got an assistant? What if I was able to hire someone to do some of the work for me while I'm gone? What if we cut back on spending? What if we started saving more? What if we could each work a few more hours? Like, you just started getting creative, and that started creating excitement and energy, and it started fueling this idea that it could actually be a reality. Of course, as soon as I told John, he was like, okay, let's do it. This is not a problem. And I was like, oh yeah, it is. Look at all these problems that I see. And he's like, no, those aren't problems.
Well, you look at that though, and this is the way that the brain works. This is our brain's effort to protect us and not to expend more energy.
Yeah.
It's a very safe thing to say, oh, I can't do it, because the brain doesn't want to work.
Of course not. That sounds very painful. The brain wants to avoid pain. seek pleasure, save energy always.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we challenge our brain with a new idea, something that seems impossible, we will look naturally for evidence of all the ways it can be impossible.
Yeah, our brains immediately goes to fight or flight. Let's run away from this idea because it's going to hurt.
Right. We've experienced this with weight loss as well. Like, it's not possible. I'm too old. I'm too busy. I'm too, we can come up with all sorts of reasons, excuses. I've tried it before. It doesn't work, for why we can't lose weight. And when we start thinking, well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Like, how could I be wrong about that? How look for evidence, like we've talked about before, of other people that have done
Somebody else did this. Why can't I?
Exactly. And changes are, it really changes the whole energy that we're putting behind that goal. John, I wanted you to talk about this next step, or this next tip that we have.
Okay.
And that is that time and money are neutral circumstances. Because then the reason I want to talk about this is the most common reasons people find to not achieve their impossible goal are, I don't have time, I don't have money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, but I have never heard that from you. I don't think I've ever heard that from you. Why have you never been limited by time or money like so many people have?
Because it's exactly what you said. I look at time and money as a neutral circumstance. Time is going to pass no matter what you do with it. It can pass while you're hiding yourself in a box in a closet, or it can pass while you're trying to do something amazing. Money, you can always make more money. Money should never be a limitation. It never has been for me. I remember, this has been a dialogue that we've had frequently in our marriage.
Yes.
And when we talk about, oh, hey, we'd like to do this, or hey, we need a new car. And it's changed recently as you have become a coach and as you have gotten coached yourself.
Yeah.
I've noticed that we can't afford that. I don't remember how many times that I've heard that in our relationship of, we just can't afford that. Because my mindset is, how can we afford that?
And I think if anybody, growing up with a fireman's salary, your family would say, I can't afford that, but you never did. And your dad and mom worked so hard to create a life.
Oh yeah, us kids wanted for nothing.
You guys were always fed. Your dad built the house you live in, beautiful house. They still live in it today. It's amazing. Built the cabinetry. Everything in his house built by his dad. Yeah. And your mom, she found a way to afford music lessons for everybody. Yeah. You guys wanted for nothing. And so many people with a fireman's salary just say, just limit.
There's like budgetary constraints.
We can't afford that. We can't afford that. And having that mindset of how can we make this work, it really, I feel like, transformed.
I don't think it's just firefighters. I think it's many people that are stuck in a job with no ability to grow or increase their income. And so we get stuck in a rut, so to speak, of what we can afford and what we can't afford.
Right. And when reality is just what you were choosing to spend that money on, right?
Yeah.
I was coaching with one of the Fat to Fuel clients, and she was really having a hard time starting into the program, saying, I don't have money to afford all the keto food. And I was like, that's so interesting, because that was limiting her from even getting started, because she said, I have this fixed income, we're saving for, I forget what it was. I think her kids were going off to college or something. And I just can't afford to buy that food. And so we walked through that, and I said, well, what, you're fueling your body right now. You're eating food.
You're just buying different food.
So all this is doing is you're not going to be buying the high protein and high carbs, and you're going to be substituting that with fat. And actually, fat is very inexpensive. Carbs and protein are very expensive. Fat is very inexpensive. And the other benefit of that is that you're not paying for as many prescriptions and doctor visits and long-term care of poor health, because you're going to be losing weight and getting your body, back aligned with your health.
When you think of it, I mean, if you get your body healthy, you can do more, you can make more. I mean, it all fits.
Yeah.
But it's something that our brains don't want us to do.
Yeah. So I want you guys to evaluate your relationship with time and money and think, are you using them in ways we all have time and we all have money, but are you using them in ways that align with your values and your goals
Your purpose.
and and your well-being? Franklin D. Roosevelt said, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today.
Amen.
I love that. I love that quote. So when you feel like you're a victim of time and money, that there are things that are happening to you and that you have no control over them, that is going to limit you every time. So consider how you can allow time and money to serve more as vehicles for growth and fulfillment and to create the positive impact that you want on your life. Then the last tip is maybe my favorite because it comes from one of my favorite all-time movies, What About Bob? And that is baby steps.
Which is something I never learned.
You never learned baby steps?
No. I we can talk about that more about
Okay.
at what cost. Remember, we were having that conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Today. But yeah, I wanted to do everything and bite off everything all at once, and that's my problem.
Yeah, and that led to some real struggles.
It led to me becoming very overweight because I stopped taking care of myself. It led to addiction. It led to mental health collapse.
Overworking.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, when John's talking about that, John works 3 days a week in his practice. And
some days 2.5.
Some weeks 2.5. Yeah, some weeks 2.5. And he was working
80 hours a week.
Much more. Yeah. Insane hours trying to reach his impossible goal. And that's so interesting because he wanted like a lot of money in his account and to be, very successful in his practice. And it was to what extent? And that was causing him a lot of mental, physical, emotional pain and struggles. And when he stepped back from that, he took about 2 months off of work to really evaluate his life, his stress, everything, his motivation for living and for making a living. And when he stepped back from that and said, why am I doing this? If I can't spend the time with my family, if I can't live a healthy life, what's it all worth?
Yeah.
So when you're making your impossible goals, I think that's really important that you pointed out. Why? And we talk about that all the time on the podcast. Why? What is your why?
And anything is achievable, but at what cost?
Yeah. So getting back to baby steps. Okay. So if you haven't seen the movie, What About Bob? Pause this podcast right now. Go watch it. You have my express permission to watch this movie. So, sorry, who's the actor in who's Bob? Bob Wiley. Remember what's his name?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Okay, so Bill Murray
and Richard Dreyfuss.
Yes, Richard Dreyfuss is Leo Marvin. Okay, so Bob Wiley is struggling. He struggles with extreme anxiety, extreme phobias, and his therapist is Dr. Leo Marvin. And his therapist introduces him to his new book and this concept of baby steps. And it's about taking small, manageable steps towards progress. So the idea behind baby steps is to break down these daunting tasks, these impossible goals, as we've been calling them, into smaller, more achievable actions. So Bob was terrified of how he would get home from this appointment that he was in. And Dr. Marvin said, instead of focusing on how you're getting home, just focus on baby steps, how you're going to get out of this office, and then focus on getting to the elevator, and then focus on getting out of the building. And so this concept of baby steps is really from the belief that progress is made through consistent effort, the accumulation of small, achievable steps. And so when you're taking those small steps, You can, it's easier to avoid the overwhelm and the discouragement, okay, by the enormity of the goals that we've set, and we can have more achievable tasks in front of us. I had a wonderful, wonderful teacher, Mr. Little, in 8th and 9th grade, and at Poston Junior High. And he taught me about this concept. And because I was always so stressed out about all the things I needed to do and what my future would look like, and all of this. And he said, Allison, put your finger in front of your faces. Stretch out your arm, put your finger in front of you, just one finger. And he said, that is your next step. Get to that finger in front of you. You can reach that. Okay. Don't stress out and worry about all the other stuff. You aren't there yet. Those aren't things that you need to focus on right now. Just focus on the next thing and do that well. And that changed my life. That teacher, I mean, I get choked up just thinking about him. He was an amazing teacher because, I mean, I don't know what he taught me as far as government and social studies went, but what he taught me as who I was and how to develop as a human being was extraordinary. So, John, if someone ever told you, I don't know, 23 years ago, everything you would have to learn and do and go through and suffer through and fail in order to be where you are today, all the heartache, the physical pain, the mental pain, everything. They say, you're going to have this achievement, but you have to go through 23 years of this. Would you say yes or no? That's my question. And I haven't asked him this before. I don't know what he's going to say.
No, I actually would still say yes.
Really?
And I'm willing to go through it.
Wow. Why?
Because of my deep ingrained purpose and on why I feel I'm here on this earth. So why not? I could look at the last 23 years and say, oh yeah, it's impossible to get there. I'm just going to go and, cut boxes or something. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with cutting boxes.
That would be my ideal job, would be probably like hanging Christmas lights.
Okay.
I love Christmas lights.
Yeah, you could do that. And you could
Easy.
do that.
Like if I was going to go for something easier and, attainable,
it's the easy.
I love hanging Christmas lights.
Yeah. And I could have taken it easy, but, you'll have pain in creation, but I feel like there's so much more pain and regret.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to look back at my life and say, wow, damn, I wish I hadn't have done that, or I wish I had done that. Instead, just get up and start.
Amazing. So we always ask, what is your why at the end of every episode? And I want you to ask me about what is my why.
So Allison, what is your why?
Oh, thanks for asking that question. My why, and I want to answer this.
And specifically about our European vacation.
What is my why?
Yeah, what was your why?
For setting that goal?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted my children to experience the world. I still want that for them, and they're not even done. And I wanted them. Look, where we live in what I would call a bubble.
Oh, yeah.
It's very safe. We have family, friends nearby. We have a strong community of school and church and neighbors. It's great. And I love our bubble. Everything's very easy. The grocery store, the pharmacy.
Everything's all a mile away.
Everything is very wonderful here. I wanted them to see what it's like for most of the world, that most people, how they eat, how they communicate, how they walk places, how transportation is, how they live in crowded spaces, how they don't need constant newness in their life, how it's a struggle just to get cough drops at the pharmacy. I mean, there's so much of the world that I wanted my children to experience and see. And it was amazing seeing them, all four of them at different times in our trip, having that realization of how vast the world is, how many opportunities are available to them, for studying, for careers, for
lunch.
Oh my goodness. And I don't want them to ever be afraid of experiencing the world or of meeting new people or of learning new things.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my why. And if nothing else, they experience those in their own way. They're all different ages, so they get those learning experiences when they're ready to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredible. So I feel like in that alone, the trip was very successful.
Cool.
I want to leave with one quote today by Nelson Mandela about the impossible. And he said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." I hope that our podcast today was very encouraging for you. And please reach out to us. We're here. We love helping people. We love helping people reach their impossible goals. And I hope this was inspiring and informational for you today. John, any last words?
I was just happy to be here. I don't know that I can add anything at this point.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Take care.
I hope you found value in what you heard today. If so, please follow us and go give us that 5-star rating. It really helps us reach more people that need to hear this message. Also, if you're ready to make changes to your health and well-being, go check out our Fat to Fuel program. Our coaching program empowers you to make healthy changes to your life one step at a time. Go to fattofuel.com or click the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.